Welcome back. If you've been following along, you've been watching me fabricate this turbocharged motor package for my 1983 Toyota Starlet. Now, the last video that I put out was a full instructional video on building the stainless steel exhaust manifold for it. Now, I've spent the last sort of 3 months on and off building an intake manifold for it. The footage I've filmed is a bit all over the show. I've tried to do my best to streamline it a little bit, but it's what it is, and it took a lot of work, and I sort of came and went from the project a fair bit, but hopefully it comes through as something coherent anyway, and you can watch the process that went into building this intake manifold from scratch really. I built everything: flanges, the runners, the plenum, the bell mouths. So it was a lot of work. It was pretty enjoyable really. As seems to be the case with me from the get-go, I didn't really know what I wanted the end product to be, and I just let it evolve as I went. I'm stoked, it's turned out good. Hopefully it works, I'm sure it will. But yeah, so sit back and watch, hopefully you like what you see. This first clip we'll shoot to was probably shot 2 or 3 months ago, so hopefully you can work out what's going on, and hopefully it comes through something good. But yeah, anyway, hope you enjoy it. It's time to start piecing together the manifold for this turbocharged motor. So I've decided to go with a big port head for this build, mainly because it's what I have lying around. I was given this by a friend quite a few years ago, so I'm going to try and put it to use. Now, the motor that's in the Starlet is a small port motor. Small port 16 valves came out in some of the later model Levins and Trunos and Corollas and stuff. I'll leave, because I eventually want to put this motor into my Corolla, I'm going to leave it as it is. The small port head is known to be the best head for naturally aspirated build really, so I'll leave that together and I'll screw together a big port motor for this turbocharged one. So the main difference really in these is the sizing of these ports here, this being a big port. So this is the manifold off the small port. I just took it off to just have a look at it and measure and compare things. If I stand this up, I can lay this flange on top and you'll see the difference in the port sizing. You can see there's a huge difference in the port sizing. I don't know too much, to be fair, about these motors, but I think it's pretty known that these big port, the big port head, the port openings at least are too big, and the small ports outperform them. But they're not a throwaway. You can still build good motors out of these, and because it's what I have, and because it's going to be turbocharged, I think this is probably a good move for me to use this. So I manually made these flanges, which I'll show you. Filmed that, and I've just finished making up these runners using this die that I made to press the end. This aluminium tubing is the same that I've used on this manifold. It's actually it worked really good on that. It's probably a touch small, but it's what I've got. So it's actually the diameter of the round is a touch smaller than that, but it works. And then with this pressed, it's actually a really nice snug fit into that flange there. Ideally you actually want the inside shape to be the same as that, but it's what it is, and actually will make it easier for me to make, being able to press it in there. So the throttles I'm going to be using, so this setup that was on the small port, these are silver top quad throttles, so they're off a 20 valve 4-age known as a silver top. I think I built that just because that's what I bought them somewhere for a good price, and so I got these from a wrecker's yard a little while back for a good price. These are Blacktop ones. They're a slightly bigger butterfly than the silver top throttles. The only real downside, I don't think it's a downside, but they just have this funny shape on the what do you call it, the exit of the throttle, I guess, that shape. So I do need to port match this flange to suit that shape. The silver top throttles are round on the inlet and round on the exit as well, so they're a bit easier to use, but these black top throttles are a bit bigger. I did contemplate whether I save the Blacktop ones for the naturally aspirated motor and then use the silver top ones for this, but this is already a setup for that motor, and whether or not it makes any sense, but I thought, oh, big port head, we use bigger throttles, it's got a turbocharger, so it might not be the best choice, but it's what I'm running with. So I'm going to make, so this part is just for the head, between the head and the throttle, so I need to make this, and then once it's on, then I can make the a plenum and some internal trumpets for the turbocharged motor. So if I lift this up here, up to this big port head, it's a bit hard to hold. So you see that outlet there, that's the water neck outlet. So with this setup, the TPS on the front of the throttles there, it's quite close to the outlet, obviously when it's on there. So what I'm going to do for this turbocharged one is I'm actually going to make the manifold a touch shorter, just so make sure I've got room for a plenum around here. And on this one, I think, well, I might change my mind, but I'm pretty certain I'm going to actually run the throttles. Normally would go that way. I'm going to flip this over and run them that way, which is a kind of a common thing to do, just to get this TPS on the back of the motor, and just to make sure I don't run into clearance problems later on. So the throttles will effectively be that way, which is all good. And it also gives me the advantage of this one here. It's got the inbuilt throttle mechanism on it, so if I was to run it in the original direction, that whole setup will be on top. So by flipping it over, that throttle will be on the underside, and I can keep it nice and clean and nice and smooth looking, and gain that clearance that I'm talking about. So now with the small port manifold, when I made this, you can sort of tell that the runners are all pretty dead straight with the throttles, but because of the port spacing on this big port head, if I lay this over top, you'll get a good shot. So as you can see, this is to the far right of that port, far left, far right, far left, rather than centralized like on that setup. So these intake runners are all going to have to, rather than being straight in, they'll have to be tilted that way, they'll have to be tilted that way, and so on. So you need to do a bit of trimming to get them to fit in right, and then so yeah, work on fitting these up, seeing what looks like it's going to work, get them all trimmed up to suit the right angle, trimmed up to suit. Because I've formed that end, it's actually made this go a little bit oval at this point, so I'll need to probably, once I've got these tacked in position here, just reshape them a touch just to make sure that matches in properly. You can sort of see it's not the perfect fit at the moment, but it'll get there. So that's the first step, so I'm going to get these runners trimmed up, get this manifold tacked together, test fit it, and then once it's all nailed on and on the head, then I can work on building a plenum from the intake side of these throttles out here. So I'll run internal trumpets, not this size, probably quite a bit shorter, but a nice rounded plenum, and then to feed into the intake pipe, the intercooler pipe.
You, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear.
I, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear.
That you will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
And will, to the best of your ability,
and will, to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Vice President Johnson, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chief Justice, President Eisenhower, Vice President Nixon, President Truman, Reverend clergy, fellow citizens. We observe today not a victory of party, but a celebration of freedom, symbolizing an end as well as a beginning, signifying renewal as well as change. For I have sworn before you and Almighty God the same solemn oath our forebears prescribed nearly a century and 3/4 ago. The world is very different now, for man holds in his mortal hands the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life. And yet the same revolutionary beliefs for which our forebears fought are still at issue around the globe. The belief that the rights of man come not from the generosity of the state, but from the hand of God. We dare not forget today that we are the heirs of that first revolution. Let the word go forth from this time and place to friend and foe alike that the torch has been passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century, tempered by war, disciplined by a hard and bitter peace, proud of our ancient heritage, and unwilling to witness or permit the slow undoing of those human rights to which this nation has always been committed and to which we are committed today at home and around the world. Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, oppose any foe to assure the survival and the success of liberty. This much we pledge and more. To those old allies whose cultural and spiritual origins we share, we pledge the loyalty of faithful friends. United, there is little we cannot do in a host of cooperative ventures. Divided, there is little we can do, for we dare not meet a powerful challenge at odds and split asunder. To those new states whom we welcome to the ranks of the free, we pledge our word that one form of colonial control shall not have passed away, merely to be replaced by a far more iron tyranny. We shall not always expect to find them supporting our view, but we shall always hope to find them strongly supporting their own freedom, and to remember that in the past, those who foolishly sought power by riding the back of the tiger ended up inside. To those people in the huts and villages of half the globe struggling to break the bonds of mass misery, we pledge our best efforts to help them help themselves for whatever period is required, not because the communists may be doing it, not because we seek their votes, but because it is right. If a free society cannot help the many who are poor, it cannot save the few who are rich.
Got that flanger welded up. Now I didn't weld too well. I'm asking a bit out of that welder I've got. It's only a 160 amp welder and it's fair pushing it to the limits welding this stuff. I had it cutting in and out lots and it was just an absolute pain in the ass. So This side here didn't weld up too well, but if I spin it around on the side I welded first, it's not quite as flash. It's a little bit gutted about that, but it's what it is. Yeah, I'm well due to upgrade that welder to something a bit better. But anyway, it's done now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it in the linisher and try and sand all these off flat. As you can see, they're all a bit they're all angled because of the angle the runners are on. So I linish those all off flat, and then I'll offer up this flange to it, see how it's looking, and then just do any tweaks that I might need to do. It looks like it'll be pretty close. Might not look at it when I go down, but by eye it's pretty good. So linish those off, offer that up to it and see how it looks.
To our sister republics south of our border, we offer a special pledge to convert our good words into good deeds, in a new alliance for progress, to assist free men and free governments in casting off the chains of poverty. But this peaceful revolution of hope cannot become the prey of hostile powers. Let all our neighbors know that we shall join with them to oppose aggression or subversion anywhere in the Americas. And let every other power know that this hemisphere intends to remain the master of its own house.
So there's that manifold all welded up. Just turned out pretty reasonable. Like I said, I'm really going to need to upgrade that welder. I've been saying that for about 10 years, but it does the job. Luckily all some of the ugly bits are on the bottom, so looks pretty good. I forgot to say, actually, there's a couple of dowels on that head there, so the two, the second and fourth hole are sized right to locate on those dowels, so it just locates nicely on there. Looks good. I did say I was going to make it shorter, which I don't even know why I said that, because I didn't make it shorter. It's pretty much, yeah, pretty much the same, 100mm or very close to it. It's about 105. That didn't really matter the length, to be honest. As long as I run some shorter trumpets, there's plenty of room for a plenum. So yeah, I'm going to bolt those on, have a look, bolt those throttles on. I think I really wouldn't mind getting a bunch of this stuff vapor blasted. I mean, you can see how that looks being brand new, and then that's a number of years old. It's still looks alright, but wouldn't mind getting the throttles, all those throttles vapor blasted, get everything looking the same and nice and uniform. Maybe even do the cam covers the same, or paint them, we'll see. But yes, I'm going to bolt these throttles on, give them another test fit, and then can start the next process of making the plenum and some trumpets.
To that World Assembly of Sovereign States, the United Nations, our last best hope, in an age where the instruments of war have far outpaced the instruments of peace, we renew our pledge of support to prevent it from becoming merely a forum for invective, to strengthen its shield of the new and the weak, and to enlarge the area in which its writ may run. Finally, to those nations who would make themselves our adversary, we offer not a pledge, but a request that both sides begin anew the quest for peace. Before the dark powers of destruction, unleashed by science, engulf all humanity.
As you saw, I finished up making this plate here. So this plate basically bolts in place of trumpets on these throttles, hence the 4 bolts on top and bottom. 4 bolts top and bottom. So now this is going to be bolted to the throttles. I've just spent a bit of time, which I didn't film, but making this wooden butt out of a couple of pieces of 2x4. So what I'm going to attempt to do, which we'll see how it goes, I've never done this before, but I'm going to try and make a plenum which will go there once I've cut this plate. Once I've cut this plate round at the ends, I'm going to attempt to hand form and roll a sheet of aluminium around this butt. There'll be a bit of cutting and welding in places to get it to form. And I've shaped the inlet of it there to 3" Then I will take this other half of the donut that I have left, put a 90 on the end of this plenum, and if I come around here, you'll see the plenum is going to sort of sit something like that, and then a little hard to show you with a 90-degree silicon off that intercooler pipe, 90-degree aluminium down there. It should all tuck in pretty nice and neat. So I'm still undecided at the moment what I'm going to do for bell mouths out of here. I hand spun these trumpets on the lathe when I made this. I tried something similar by using this is actually the buck that I formed these trumpets around. I tried to press a piece of the tube that I'd used for these runners. I tried to press a piece of pipe down to see if it would flare out, but it's a bit too much of a stretch. So I may remake, because I can't have them that long. Obviously the trumpets can't be that long out of there. There'd be no room. So I do just need a bell mouth. So I might either machine some solid aluminium bell mouths and weld them on each one, or I may maybe make another buck that's only sort of 25mm long and hand spin just this section here that can then either press in or weld into here. Now the other thing that I've had to try and work out how I'm going to do, because the bolts bolt into these throttle bodies this way, and if this plate's here, you need a way of bolting it onto these throttles. Now I don't want to make this plenum two-piece. I want to make it single piece. So what I'm going to do is actually on the ones on the other motor, I'm actually going to drill out these throttle bodies instead of the bolts going through. I'll put the bolts through this way, and on the other side there's a bit of a boss in the way. So I'm probably going to take those throttles and actually machine away a bunch of this. There's all these sorts of things that aren't used in this case. So I might actually tidy up these throttles a lot, so I can actually bolt the plenum in through the back side of this, keep it all one piece, nice and simple. That should be good. So I'm now going to give it a go, see if I can actually get aluminium to form around this. I've seen the end product of it being done. I haven't seen it happen in person, so I'm going to give it a whirl and see what happens. It'll either work great or it'll be a hell of a fail, so we'll see.
In planned or accidental self-destruction, we dare not tempt them with weakness, for only when our arms are sufficient beyond doubt can we be certain beyond doubt that they will never be employed. But neither can two great and powerful groups of nations take comfort from our present course, both sides overburdened by the cost of modern weapons, both rightly alarmed by the steady spread of the deadly atom, yet both racing to alter that uncertain balance of terror that stays the hand of mankind's final war. So let us begin anew, remembering on both sides that civility is not a sign of weakness, and sincerity is always subject to proof. Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate. Let both sides explore what problems unite us, instead of belaboring those problems which divide us. Let both sides, for the first time, formulate serious and precise proposals for the inspection and control of arms, and bring the absolute power to destroy other nations under the absolute control of all nations. Let both sides seek to invoke the wonders of science instead of its terrors. Together let us explore the stars, conquer the deserts, eradicate disease, tap the ocean depths, and encourage the arts and commerce. Let both sides unite to heed in all corners of the earth the command of Isaiah to undo the heavy burden and let the oppressed go free. And if a beachhead of cooperation may push back the jungle of suspicion, let both sides join in creating a new endeavor, not a new balance of power, but a new world of law, where the strong are just and the weak secure and the peace preserved. All this will not be finished in the first 100 days, nor will it be finished in the first 1,000 days, nor in the life of this administration, nor even perhaps in our lifetime on this planet. But let us begin. In your hands, my fellow citizens, more than mine, will rest the final success or failure of our course. Since this country was founded, each generation of Americans has been summoned to give testimony to its national loyalty. The graves of young Americans who answered the call to service surround the globe. Now the trumpet summons us again, not as a call to bear arms, though arms we need, not as a call to battle, though in battle we are, but a call to bear the burden of a long twilight struggle, year in and year out, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, a struggle against the common enemies of man, tyranny, poverty, disease, and war itself. Can we forge against these enemies a grand and global alliance, north and south, east and west, that can assure a more fruitful life for all mankind? Will you join in that historic effort? In the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its hour of maximum danger. I do not shrink from this responsibility. I welcome it. I do not believe that any of us would exchange places with any other people or any other generation. The energy, the faith, the devotion which we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. My fellow citizens of the world, ask not what America will do for you, but what together we can do for the freedom of man. Finally, whether you are citizens of America or citizens of the world, ask of us here the same high standards of strength and sacrifice which we ask of you. With a good conscience, our only sure reward.
So I spent a bit of time, machined up this this die that I'm going to be pressing this 50mm aluminium pipe over. I've done a couple of test runs and modified it a bit to get to work alright, so I'm now going to do the 4 for this. So I've got this die here, and I've got this as a bit of a, what would you call it, sort of a bit of a plug, so the pipe fits snugly over that spigot on the end there, and that allows me to get a nice even push down in the press. Now when I was doing a few test runs, I worked out that I need to anneal this aluminium, so I'm going to heat it up with a gas torch and cool it off. That helps anneal the aluminium, and then once that's done, I need to grease up this die and also grease up the internal of this aluminium pipe, and then just snugly fits over the top of that, and then in the press it down, forms the trumpets, and then the trumpets will fit snugly into there. And then once I've done that, I'm going to have to try and decide on what height I want away from here. I don't want them too long because they'll sit up too high into the plenum. So I've cut these to 75mm, which gives me, when this spigot presses right down and contacts, that 75mm bit of pipe. It's a bit hard to show you. Squishes in there nicely, and then also I can, yeah, like I say, machine it to the right length I want. Now when I've machined this die, you might not be able to see it maybe, but I've had to give it, well, for a few reasons, but I've tapered it, so the measurement here is the inside of that, and then it gradually, I've put I think a 2-degree taper as it goes up, and then into the bell mouth. I think the taper is a good idea, but also just for trying to get, once it's pushed on and formed, trying to get it off, you really need a taper, so as soon as it starts to move, it comes free. It actually has been proven to be a mission to get them off with a few other just test fitted, so, or test runs. So I've come up with a bit of a plan to get them off without wrecking them, so hopefully it works good. So I'll set these up and start pressing them. Finished welding up that plenum. It's turned out pretty good, really. Pretty happy with it. Get a good shot in there of the bell mouths. Now there's one last thing left to do for the plenum itself, and then that's to weld the fitting on the end. Now where it goes in the car, I think I'm going to weld a sharp 90 out of, make one out of this donut. I have a sharp 90 out of there which goes straight to the intercooler piping. Now, I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before or not, but so these throttles here, when when the intakes normally bolt on, the bolts come from the front, bolt in through these bosses here. Now the way I've built this, I didn't want to build it this two-piece, so I had to make it so the bolts, so I've threaded all these holes so the bolts would go in that way. Now on these throttles, what it means is I'm going to have to do a bit of machining and grinding and just remove these bosses that are here. This far one doesn't have one, so there's 3 of them to remove, and then I'll just simply drill the holes out, remove the threads so I can stick the bolts in this way, and then that'll bolt up. So the next step is I want to do this elbow like I said, but I need to get this bolted together and bolted onto the motor tight so I know where I need to position that elbow. So I'm going to do that now. It's all turning out pretty good. I'm pretty happy. There's been a bit of time between me building this intake manifold and the plenum, and the reason being is when I was welding this, I just found out that the welder I've had for a long time has just been far too underpowered. So I pulled pin when I'd finished making this because I wasn't super stoked with how it welded up, and I've upgraded my welder, and that's why I've done this now, and this has turned out far better. So it is what it is. I kind of wish I mean, it looks pretty good here, but the other side's not the flashiest. Anyway, so yeah, so I'm going to sort these out so I can actually bolt this up, even just temporarily for now, so I can get it on the car, have a look at it, and sort out welding this elbow. Now, once I've done that, I'll call it good for now. When it comes time to getting the motor actually all screwed together, I might find that I might need to make some ports in this, just for whether I need one for a boost feed or whatever, but I'll do that when I get to it. It's no drama if I need to weld something to it later on. But so yeah, going to get to that and bolt it together. So that's obviously the intake manifold all done. Pretty stoked on it, turned out pretty good. There's a few little things that I'll still do to the manifold once it all comes back off. I still need to port match it. I'd really like to put idle control on it, so I'll have to look at doing something with that. But as you can see, like that's the bulk of building it, and it's basically all done. So you might have noticed, just as throughout the video, there's a bunch of other stuff that has been done on the car. It's got a dump pipe on it, intercoolers mounted, that sort of stuff. So I have filmed all that, so the next video will likely be those two things, and I do need to build a full exhaust, so the next videos should be all of that stuff combined as all the final things fabrication wise to do this conversion. At some point I do have to build a motor. This motor, obviously, like I said numerous times, isn't going to stay in here, so I do need to do that, spend a bit of money, all those sorts of things. So that'll all come at time whenever I get around to it. So yeah, hope you like what you saw. Hopefully you learned something. I definitely did. There's a few things that I did in it that I sort of wasn't that stoked on, and if I ever, hopefully not, if I ever build another one, I'll make sure I correct those things I did wrong. But yeah, stoked otherwise. It's cool. So yeah, awesome. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Catch you next time. Cheers.